All right, welcome everyone to our webinar for this afternoon today as we are talking about promoting higher business engagement. My name is Kim Meadows. I am the training director for NAWDP, the National Association of Workforce Development Professionals, and I'm going to be your presenter for today as we talk about this very, very important subject. And we're really going to focus our discussion today. We're going to focus it on registered apprenticeship. So not only just higher business engagement, but specifically higher business engagement within registered apprenticeship. So again, my name is Kim Meadows. I am representing NAWDP here today. And before we start, I want to tell everybody on the call just happy Workforce Development Month. So I'm not sure if anybody has really thought about that yet or if you've really celebrated it, but happy Workforce Development Month. Here in the month of September is the month that we set aside and really promote the work that we do in the workforce profession. So I know we promote that work all the time. We should promote it all the time and really advocate for what it is that we're doing. But at the same time, we set aside this particular month to really represent workforce development and promote a lot of things that we're doing within our organization. So happy Workforce Development Month. I would encourage you to just think about some things that you can do to really advocate workforce development in your community or within your organization during this month. So I want to just start off by saying that, but we'll go ahead and jump into our webinar now. So with any of the webinars we do, we love them to be interactive. I love them to be interactive. So if you have any questions, anything that you want to add to our conversation here today, feel free to type it into the chat box. If there's something that you agree with me on, you can just simply type yes, or that's happened to me, or I agree. Or if there's something that you want to add to the discussion, I would love to hear from you as well. And I monitor the chat, or try to monitor the chat as we are going through. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. All right, so we have four main topics that we want to talk about. So I want to just kind of give us kind of a roadmap of what we're going to talk about today. So our topics for discussion for today, the first thing that we want to discuss is really just the need for business engagement. And we know in the workforce system, business is really our customer. That is that's who we serve, are our businesses as our customers. And so we really have to have business engagement as we're developing programs or as we're developing initiatives. And registered apprenticeships are no different. So we're going to talk about really the need for business engagement just as a starting point. When we're thinking about registered apprenticeships, let's go ahead and be proactive and think about some of the perceptions that employers may have about registered apprenticeships, right? We know that there are perceptions out there. Some of them are real. Some of them are just perceived. They're not really based in fact, but it may be something that employers think of a registered apprenticeship, but it may not necessarily be based in fact. So we're going to talk about some of the perceptions that employers may have about registered apprenticeships. And as you are engaging employers, how you can really be proactive when you're talking about those perceptions. We're also going to talk about what our part is when it comes to research and preparation. How do we research and prep for those meetings with employers or with businesses? How do we research for that? What are we looking for? What are the things that we're looking for? And then lastly, I want to give you some strategies to promote business engagement, some tools and strategies. And a lot of this may be things that you've heard before. Some of it may be new to you. But what I like to just encourage people to do is if it's something, even if it's something that you've heard before, but maybe you've gotten away from doing it, I hope this reels you back in. I hope it gets you back in to thinking about how is it that we really promote higher business engagement. All right, so why do we need business engagement? So one of the main reason that we need business engagement is because business is the customer. And so as I'm going through this, if you want to type something into the chat box of kind of what your perception is of why do we need business engagement? Why is that important to not only to workforce development and apprenticeships, but to the workforce system in general? Why is the need for business engagement so imperative. And you can just type your comments into the chat box. I'll come back and read some of them out. But as the workforce system, we really provide what the business needs when it comes to workforce. And how do we know what the businesses need unless we engage them, unless we ask, what is it that you need? What is it that you're looking for in an employee? And so I want to give you an example, and we can use this as an analogy, but at one of the former companies that I worked at, one of the things that we did right before I left that job was we were coming up with a new website, kind of a different website. And what the website company did was they got everybody in the room. So it was probably about maybe 15, 20 of us, but they got everybody in the room and they talked about, and they sat us all at the table and they asked us, what is it that you want in your website? Right. So of course they're the website experts, of course. So they could have come in and just built a random website, but they wanted to make sure that they engaged us. So they asked us, what are your pain points? That was one of the things they asked. What are your pain points? What are some things that keep you up at night? I remember that being a phrase. What are some of the things that keep you up at night when it comes to your website? What are some things that you love about your website? What are some things that you don't like about your website? What are some things that you think can be improved? Right. So they asked us all these questions, and they asked us those questions because we're the customer, right? So they're building the website for us. So when you think about kind of that scenario, and you think about what we're doing with registered apprenticeships and businesses, the analogy is the same. So we want to ask the companies, or we want to ask the businesses those same kind of questions. What are things that keep you up at night? What are your pain points when it comes to your workforce? What are some things about the skills gap that you may see with people that you hire? What are some things about your turnover rate? Like, what are some things that are your pain points that we can listen and have a discussion, and then we talk to you about what a solution could be. So really that has to be the starting point, is really thinking of the business as the customer. So let's just go and see what a couple of people said. Looks like Kwame said business employment is the ultimate goal for those involved in our programs. Absolutely, because we can train job seekers, we can train participants, but we are training them for a job. So that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is not to just get a training or to get a certification or to get a degree. It's to get a job. That's the end goal. So absolutely love that, Kwame. And then Jamie says, how can we know what business community or what the community and businesses are looking for to integrate our clients successfully into the workforce? And Portia says, business engagement helps us build and sustain partnerships. Love that. We'll talk about that a little bit later, with employers to provide opportunities for job seekers. And all of those are definitely true. And when you think about business engagement, it's really several different things, but it all comes back to business is the customer. So we're really asking businesses, what is it that you want in an employee? So we're gonna do a quick self-assessment. And so this is very informal. We're not taking a poll or anything, but as we talk through this, I'm just gonna go down a couple of questions, and I just want you to just do a self-evaluation. You don't have to raise your hand. If you want to type into the chat box, that's fine. But let's just do a quick self-assessment of what our current business engagement is. Right? Aside from apprenticeships, aside from training, what is our relationship with the business community? So I'll ask you a couple of questions, and I just want you to think about it. And, you can, just think about it on a scale of 1 to 5. Like, if it's 5, it's something that you are really good at or something that you're really doing. If it's 1, it's something that you need improvement in. So as I ask these questions, if you want to type into the chat box, that's fine. But number 1, do you stay in contact with businesses if you are not providing a service? So if you're not providing a service such as on-the-job training or an apprenticeship, or if you had done it in the past, but you're not doing it currently, do you still maintain a relationship with that business? Right? As we were talking about, businesses are our partners. So are you maintaining a relationship with those businesses? Do businesses use your agency as a resource? Do they know what resources you provide? Sometimes businesses don't know the resources that our agencies provide. So a lot of times we provide more than just training opportunities. We have other resources, whether it's, roundtables for employers and businesses, whether it's job postings, whether, we pull together job fairs. Do businesses use your agency as a resource? Or do you always find yourself going out to businesses and starting the relationship, or do they come to you? Number 3, do you engage with your local chamber of commerce or employer committees? If you have employer committees or other employer groups, do you engage with those people? One of my colleagues used the term, and I love the term, and I told him I was going to use it, but he used the term population center. So do you hang out where the businesses are? Right? Do you go to the Chamber of Commerce where the businesses are? Do you go to industry organizations where the businesses meet? So how is your engagement in those population centers? And then lastly, if you have a business services department or, a specific person who does business services, are other people in your organization also involved in serving businesses, or is it just that one person? Or is it an organization wide type of situation? So do you have just one person who maybe leads the charge, but also have other people who work with businesses as well? Okay, so those are some things to just think about when we think about just assessing your current business engagement. And so as we move on, I want to talk about how to be proactive. So let's start there. How to be proactive when we're thinking about registered apprenticeships, because we really want to put this in just the terms of registered apprenticeship. So one of the things that we have to do right away is to be aware of the perceptions that businesses have about registered apprenticeships. So I'm going to give you a couple of the perceptions that I've heard over the years and things that I've read. And I want you to add to this as well. I want you to add to this list of what are some of the perceptions that businesses may have. And again, these may be real or these may be just perceived and they're not based in fact. But these are some perceptions that businesses have with registered apprenticeships. Number 1, we can't afford it. The cost is too high. Have you heard that? Is that a perception in the business, in the business community? And again, that could be a fact, but we want to be able to address that right away. So, if cost is something that businesses are thinking about as a reason that they don't engage on registered apprenticeships, then let's think about some things that we can talk to the businesses about when it comes to alleviating or maybe decreasing that cost. A lot of times businesses will say there is a lot of paperwork involved. So if you've heard that, you can raise your hand on that raise your hand icon and just type into the chat box if you agree with that one. But I've heard that one several times is, it just is a lot of paperwork. I don't want to get bogged down in the paperwork. We don't have the time. We don't have the staff to do all of the paperwork, right? So, and I see Jamie put that in capital letters. Yeah, I hear that all the time. Also implementation. So we hear that. Sometimes businesses think that registered apprenticeship is a program and we have to take that program and put it into their business. When in actuality, a registered apprenticeship can be very flexible and very customized. Now, there are requirements, but it can be definitely customized to that business. So it's not like we're taking a registered apprenticeship and putting it into that business. We're really talking to the customer to see how we can customize that apprenticeship for what it is they need. So we're talking to the businesses to, be flexible. But a lot of times businesses will shy away from that because they don't think that they can fit into that box. But they are the boss. So, we have to let them know we can fit into what you need. Another perception is that they don't see the benefit of registered apprenticeships. Now, it's not a lot of times that they don't see the benefit of apprenticeships, but they see it and a lot of times we sell it from the side of the apprentice. So we'll give you all of these benefits, but the benefits are really the benefits that the apprentice may have as opposed to the business. So, we definitely want to change that as well. And we'll talk about some different ways to do that. But those are some of the perceptions that businesses may have when it comes to registered apprenticeships, and it makes them kind of, shy away from it or not really engaged because they have these perceptions of it costs too much, there's too much paperwork involved, it's not going to fit into what we need, and it's registered apprenticeship is more for the apprentice as opposed to the business. Are there others? Are there others that you have? Dennis says, we have heard it, but working with a good sponsor, they will do it. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, they will. And a lot of times when we approach businesses with registered apprenticeships, if we can go ahead and just alleviate those perceptions right away, that's going to increase the business engagement. All right. And so Jamie says transferable skills. What are the transferable skills? Jamie, if you want to elaborate on that. Kwame says they are paying for an employee to train, then leave. Yeah, that's a good one. And that kind of falls under cost as well. And we'll look at that as well, Kwame. Great. So let's talk about how we can be proactive when we're addressing those perceived challenges. So again, a lot of these things can be addressed up front. And so when we're thinking about cost, one of the things that you could do is just go ahead and bring funding ideas to the table. So at times, sometimes, within the workforce system, whether if you work with a WIOA grant, if you bring that to the table, if there are different scholarships or grants at a community college or other ways that it can, the training can be paid for, we can go ahead and bring that to the table as an idea so that the business is not constantly thinking that they are providing all of the cost of the training. So, we want to be proactive when it comes to bringing those funding ideas to the table. So, collaborating with the workforce development system, collaborating with training grants or educational institutions to see what type of funding or what type of grants are available to people who are in registered apprenticeships. There also may be, depending on the state that you live in, there may be tax credits or tax incentives available to businesses who participate in these type programs as well. So, we want to do our research on that as well. And then Kwame, this kind of goes to what you were alluding to, is to really quantify other successes. So Kwame, like you were saying, sometimes businesses have, the perception that I'll train them and they'll leave. But if we can quantify it in other ways of the money that you're going to save in turnover, and actually what is the rate of people that actually stay? Because a lot of times, if you look at the people that stay at a job with that went through a registered apprenticeship as opposed to one that just came in, your turnover is probably going to be better or lower with the people who participated in the registered apprenticeship. So there's always a chance that an employee leaves, whether they're in a registered apprenticeship or not, right? You always have that. But according to statistics, a person who participates in a registered apprenticeship is more likely to stay. So if we can start quantifying those, and I'm going to give you some examples here in a moment as well. Okay. All right, I was just looking into the chat box and see what we had going on there. So yeah, continue typing into the chat box, and I encourage you to go and read the comments in the chat box as we're learning from each other. But so we want to think about how we can bring those funding ideas to the table to just say, these are some ideas. These are some things that we can look at as ways to either decrease or alleviate costs. Another way we can be proactive when we're thinking about these challenges is, like we said, a lot of times employers and businesses are like, you know what, there's just too much paperwork involved. We don't have the time, we don't have the staff. And so this gives us an opportunity to really reevaluate our processes, right? Reevaluate our process to see what can be improved, because most times we can improve our processes. The things that, and I love to say this because, a lot of times we'll get into a kind of a place where we've done it one way for so long that we just continue doing it because it works, but it's not necessarily the best way. It's not necessarily the most streamlined way. So look at your process of your paperwork and just think, what are some ways that it can be improved? What are some ways your paperwork may be improved? What are some ways that it can be streamlined? And what about, we have access to all different types of technology now? Are there things that we can use that we can email as opposed to having to meet with a business and having signatures? So again, there are requirements behind that, but there's always the opportunity to see if and when you can improve your processes. So, things that worked 20 years ago, yes, they still work, but again, it may not necessarily be the best way. And so this is where maybe, when we participate in networking events and learn best practices and promising practices from our colleagues, that's one of the things that Workforce Development Month is about, is to really learn those promising practices. What are other people doing? What are other people doing that we maybe can implement? When I go to conferences or when I get on webinars, I really try to walk away with at least one thing I can implement in my current role. So what is it that you can learn from somebody else that may help you improve your process? So that paperwork is, really an issue. And the other thing is, I've seen areas, I used to work in an area where it may take, for me and a different area, to do the exact same thing. It may take one of us 6 weeks and it may take the other one 6 months. And when we're thinking about an employer and, they're really about that bottom line, in 6 months, they've moved on, right? They moved on with life. So if the process is taking that amount of time, then we really need to look at a way to streamline that process. And there's no right or wrong way, but there's always an opportunity to improve. So figure out what that means for your organization. All right. Also implementation. So again, a lot of times that perception for businesses is they have to fit into the registered apprenticeship box. So it's like, we have this program over here and we're going to bring it to you, and this is what you have to do. And so, we want to alleviate that right up front. That perception is the misconception, because registered apprenticeships, they do have requirements, but they are flexible. Apprenticeships can be customized for specific industry needs. So as you're sitting down and engaging the business, that's something that you want to talk about up front. We're here to listen to you so that we know what it is that you value or what you need in an apprenticeship. Let's see. Oh, another thing about implementation, again, this is a chance for us as workforce professionals to improve, but reimagine what your work hours are. That's a big thing, because a lot of times, depending on what industry you're in, if you're in, working with businesses that are in advanced manufacturing or the medical field, they don't have hours that are 9 to 5. Right. So it may be 7 o'clock when the person that you need to see is there. So are you willing to be flexible? I've heard stories, again, this is a promising practice to me. I heard a young lady say this, that she actually met one of the HR managers or somebody who had to sign the paperwork, but she met them at the airport before his flight just to get his signature. So that goes to show how we can be flexible as a workforce system or as the person or the group that is putting the registered apprenticeship together. So, think outside of that 9 to 5 box, and how can we really engage the employers around what their hours are. I remember working in rapid response. I was a rapid response coordinator. And when a lot of our businesses, our manufacturers started to close their businesses, and we would have to go in and do just different sessions. Sometimes we would have to go in at 6 o'clock in the morning to see one shift. And then the next shift, we may have to go in at 8 o'clock at night. Right. So it wasn't a 9 to 5. So again, sometimes we have to get outside of the box that we're in to get inside of the box that business is in. So when thinking about implementation, of course, think about the paperwork, but also think about how we can be flexible as the workforce agency, and then also how to just really talk to those businesses about how apprenticeships can be customized so that they don't feel like they have all this list of things to do and it can't be customized specifically to what they want. All right. And if you want to share anything or any ideas on that as well, chime into the chat box, because I know other people on the webinar would love to hear your ideas of what you do in your agency as well. And another thing with implementation that I jotted down that I wanted to be sure to say is to, as much as possible, and I know we have to use workforce jargon sometimes and that workforce language, but as much as possible, let's eliminate workforce jargon and really talk to employers in their language, right? Because a lot of times when you hear terms like WIOA or you hear terms like RTI and other things that are really workforce terms, even though we use them when we're talking in work to our other workforce colleagues, when you're going into a business, that may be a turnoff because those are terms that even though we use them freely, that the businesses may not really understand. So really learn the language of the business or the sector that you're approaching when we're thinking about business engagement. All right, and then lastly, one of the perceptions that businesses may have is that they don't see a benefit in registered apprenticeships. They don't see a benefit in registered apprenticeships for the business. And sometimes it's because when we promote apprenticeships, this may not necessarily be the case for your organization, but I've seen it, I've done it, and I had to learn from that. But when we promote registered apprenticeship, we promote registered apprenticeship from the side of the apprentice. So we say these are all the things that is going to provide the apprentice. Like you can earn and you can learn and you can do all these things. You can move up in the organization, you can gain skills. And we talk about registered apprenticeships from that standpoint. But businesses, we need to make, if we're promoting business engagement, we need to change kind of what our perception is and how we talk about apprenticeships when we're talking to the business, and really think about what is the benefit to the business, right? And we're going to look at that in a moment. What is the benefit to the business? Because even though they say, that is a good program, but they want to see the benefit in it for them. If they're, spending time and spending money and spending staff time that can be used up elsewhere, they want to make sure that they see what that benefit is. And so that leads me to my next slide, is really to just recognize the challenges of the businesses. So let's just talk about some of the challenges of businesses and, some of the challenges that businesses are having now. You can, again, chime into the chat box. I'm loving the interaction in the chat box. I hope everybody's going back to read everything that's in the chat box. It's some great commentary. So make sure you go in and read that as well. But when we think about preparing to speak to businesses, we really want to be able to recognize the challenges of the businesses. And so I heard this quote probably a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't have anything to do with workforce or registered apprenticeship, but I heard it and I said it fit exactly into what we're talking about. But the quote said, "Sell the problem and not the solution." And so when we're engaging employers, that's really what we want to do. We want to sell the problem. We want to ask them, what's your pain points? Instead of telling them how great apprenticeship is. We know, it's a proven model. It is a great model that has been proven in several different industries. But what we want to sell to the employer and the business, and the way we increase engagement, is to sell the problem. So we're talking to them about, what are your problems? We're listening to those problems. We're listening to those pain points. And then we talk about how registered apprenticeship can help solve those problems. So some of the challenges that businesses are having now, just in the business landscape. So I came up with 4. There are a lot more. So please feel free to put those into the chat box, in addition to the ones that I have here. But one of the things that we hear a lot now is that businesses are just having a hard time just filling positions. And an indicator of this is you'll see the same position on the same website for weeks and months at a time. In my local area, there's a couple of companies here that when I drive by on their, not on their website, but they have like a billboard outside their company. And every day for probably about 6 months, they say now hiring. And it has literally been there for 6 months. So they are clearly having a hard time recruiting and filling positions. And sometimes the skills gap in hiring, that's a challenge of businesses. So maybe, they're paying a competitive wage. People are filling out applications for the position, but they don't have the skills that are necessary to do the jobs that are being advertised for. So there's a skill gap there. So businesses are having those challenges. There's a lot of turnover going on, right? So I had a business talk to me. in my previous role. And one of the things that she said was she just wants people to not only get the job, but stay at the job. And so I asked her the question. I was like, well, are they staying a week, a month? Like, what's the turnaround time? And she said that people were leaving after a couple of shifts. Like maybe if they start on Monday, by Wednesday, they don't show up again. And it's because of, this may be one of the reasons. It may be the company culture, may have things to do with that, but it's also a very competitive job market. So if there is a job down the street that's paying a little bit more, she's like, they'll leave and they'll go to the other job down the street. That businesses are really being challenged now with high turnover. And then another one is really developing existing talent. So you have people that are there, you have people that are, working for you. They've been there, they've been doing a great job. But those same people are not able to go and get the training to move up in that job. And so a good example of this was, and I was on a webinar about this, and it was a really good webinar on registered apprenticeship, but it was for teachers. And this particular area had a shortage of certified teachers. And so, the school district just had a shortage of teachers, but they had teachers' aides who had worked in the school system, but they were not certified. So this area put together a registered apprenticeship to take those teachers' aides to get them certified over a 2-year, maybe a year and a half, 2-year period. So it's not that they didn't have the talent or have the people, the people didn't have those skills. So that was one of the challenges that those particular businesses have. So any others that you all can think of? Any others? So Jamie says, same here. Okay, Jamie says finds AIS systems are difficult to navigate. Okay, that's good. That's good information. Good things to know with businesses. That's definitely good to share those things, as that maybe the process to fill those positions or to put in that resume or to do that resume or fill out those applications is difficult as well. So great point. So when we're looking at challenges of the businesses, thinking about the challenges of the businesses, I've listed 4 here, and I want you to put into the chat box of other challenges that you can think of. But when we think about registered apprenticeships, now take those challenges and think of registered apprenticeship as a tool, a workforce development tool. So as opposed to thinking of it as a program, a registered apprenticeship program, it is a program in workforce. But from the business side, it's a workforce development tool. It's a way, registered apprenticeship is a way that we help solve some of those challenges that I've listed. Right. So when we present this to the businesses, we're not presenting it as a program, we're presenting it as a tool when you're thinking about business engagement. All right. So how can you promote business engagement? And the way that you can promote business engagement is to really engage. Right. So with engage, that means to be a part of the business community. And somebody said this earlier, we're not separate. It's not workforce development and economic development and businesses over here. We have different titles. We may have different roles, but we're all one. We're all going toward the same goals. And so we really have to learn how to be a part of our business community. So if we have a job seeker who's looking for a job, we can refer them to this particular business. If a business has an opening, maybe they can contact our agency. So, it's a partnership. It's a win-win situation. So we have to really embed ourselves as workforce in the business community. So how do we do that? One way are those population centers. I love that term. Those population centers. Where are the businesses hanging out? Where are they at? I was at a conference I actually just came back yesterday, but I was at a conference, and it was a workforce development conference. And one of the things that they did at the workforce development conference was they recognized people who were there from the private sector, from the business sector. And they really wanted to recognize those business leaders and thank them for coming to a workforce development conference. And so we should want to do the same thing in business conferences, whether it's a sector, whether it's an industry conference. We as workforce professionals, we should also go to those conferences, right? So we should embed ourselves in their conferences as well. So think about some sectors that are in demand. What are some jobs that are in demand where you live at? Is it advanced manufacturing? Is it cybersecurity? Is it logistics? So, and you can jot those into the chat box as well. But what are some of those sectors that are really in demand right now? And think about those and see if you can find a conference where those people gather, right? What's that population center? Go learn about that sector, learn about those business. What are the words that they use? What's the jargon? What's the lingo that they use? What are their pain points? You know, a lot of times when we go to workforce development conferences, we hear everything that are our pain points in workforce development, you know, whether it's recruitment or outreach or follow-up, whatever those things may be. When you go to a business conference, industry conference, or a sector conference, you can learn those things as well. So this is a great time for you to listen, to take notes, and really be a part of that business community. So think about what those population centers are. I would just, give you a challenge right now is to think of at least one place that you can start embedding yourself in the business community. And you can type it into the chat box if you like. And as you're typing into the chat box, I love that because it gives other people who are on this call as well and people who will view this later, because we do archive this, but it'll, just give people a chance to also think about, okay, that's something that I can do as well. Or this is, a place that I can go as well. So think of at least one place that maybe you don't have that relationship right now, but it's a relationship where those business community and those business leaders are at. So Jamie says, if you can't find the conference, does anyone have any other ideas other than the Chamber of Commerce? Yeah, go ahead and type those in. So yeah, you may not be able to find those conferences. You may not be able to participate in those conferences face-to-face. There may be opportunities to also do it online. And also, I would suggest, this is one of the things I did because in my former position, we had such a need for truck drivers. And so one of the things I did was I joined some online groups on LinkedIn. And so you would be surprised. Well, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but when you join those online groups in LinkedIn, you can ask questions, you can make connections. They'll talk to you about things that are going on in the industry. They'll talk to you about new technology. I learned so much about truck driving just by connecting with an online group in LinkedIn. So I came in as workforce, but I started learning more about that industry within just the LinkedIn community. So there are a lot. Jamie says Facebook groups are great as well. Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about changing times and technology, we have access to so much technology. We have access to so many people within LinkedIn, within Facebook, within Twitter. So figure out what industries that you're trying to work with when it comes to registered apprenticeships. Learn that industry lingo and language and what's happening in that industry. And then join those groups, right? Join those groups. So just engage. So figure out ways that you can become engaged in the business community. Another thing that you can do is to host roundtables. We did this a couple of times in my local area. Is we just really brought businesses in, and again, happened to be in a region where advanced manufacturing was one of our biggest industries and one of our in-demand industries. And so we were creating things around advanced manufacturing. So it's one thing to create a curriculum based on what we think, but it's another thing to bring the businesses in and ask them, what do you think? Tell me what you would like to see. Tell me some things that are happening in your industry. And the thing is, when we do these business roundtables, is we really have to listen, right? Pay attention, as opposed to constantly selling registered apprenticeship. Business roundtables are a chance to just listen, see what things are going on in that particular industry. Business roundtables are also a great chance for other businesses to share what they're kind of what their experiences have been with apprenticeships. So as you're continuing to build those relationships, if you've worked with a business and they've had a great, successful apprenticeship program, bring those businesses in and let them talk to other businesses at the roundtable, and let them answer questions. So it's one thing for us to answer questions as workforce, but a business who's had to go through the implementation process, the paperwork, and it's been a success, bring them in and let them talk to the other businesses as well. So that's a great way to just continue that business engagement, is to really just facilitate all those businesses getting together. Share apprenticeship stories. A lot of times we share success stories from the apprentice perspective. So we have our apprentices come in, and that's great as well. I'm all about promotion and just showing the successes. I love that. I love to hear it from the apprentice side, from the side of the apprentice, and how they have taken advantage of that program and how they're in a better position. But we also love to hear from the side of the business. So as you're looking for those apprentice success stories, also look for those business success stories. So if you can think of a business right now, if you have worked with a registered apprenticeship and you can think of a business that may be a great success story, reach out to them. And this is the perfect time, Workforce Development Month. Reach out to them and have them either do a short video or maybe just a short write-up, so that they can sell registered apprenticeship to businesses probably better than we can, because they've had to experience it from A to Z, right? So think about sharing the success stories from the side of the business as well. Okay, and Wade says we first did roundtables by industry grouping. Love it. Later invited those attendees to an area business roundtable event, received good buy-in. Thank you for sharing that, Wade. And I would definitely encourage, I just happened to see that one pop up into the chat box, but let's see. How did you create the roundtable discussion or moderator? So we had just probably a list of questions that we would ask. So you can kind of think of things as you're, engaging the business and you're thinking about registered apprenticeship. One of the things that I like to ask is what are some areas that can be improved? What are your pain points? Where do you see this industry in 2 years? Or where do you see this industry in 5 years? What new technologies are coming about? So it's just depending on, and a lot of times when you just start the conversation just carries on its own. So I'd have some questions just laid out, but there are a lot of things that'll come out just by conversation, just by asking one simple question, and then everybody starts talking about it, and then all of a sudden you have a group discussion. So that's kind of how we did it. When you think about outreach materials, so when you think about those brochures that we make or what we have on our website, are registered apprenticeship a part of your outreach material? And it can be yes, sometimes, maybe, but do you really have a flyer, or do you have a part of your website that is specifically for apprenticeships? If you have job boards, do you advertise apprenticeship opportunities on your job board? So how are we using outreach materials for apprenticeships as well? So if you're not doing that at all, that may be something you want to think about. And I would also suggest, if you are doing apprenticeship flyers, and it's great to do one or both, but you may want to have one that is dedicated to the apprentice, so trying to get those apprentices in, but also have one that's dedicated to the business community. So when you're passing those out, or when you're talking to people about that, the apprenticeship flyer for the business is going to look a little different than an apprenticeship flyer for the person who's going to be a part of the program. So just think about marketing or targeting your marketing efforts to the business as well. And so just look over some of your material and make sure that it's really targeting your businesses. Right. So the last couple of things I want to leave you with, and then I want to go to a website and show you something before we sign off our time here together today. Really to know the value of apprenticeships to businesses. So think of apprenticeships, they can offer a stepped up wage system. So sometimes a business may not necessarily be able to afford or their wages may not be competitive with other businesses in the local area. But an apprenticeship is a way to kind of offset that. So they may be able to start off at a lower wage. So as they have, potential apprentices coming in, they can say, well, we're not starting you off up here, but we're starting you off a little bit lower, or we're starting you off lower. But in addition to that, you get this training, and then there is a specific stepped up wage system to where in 6 months, 3 months, or 6 months, or a year, you're going to be not only at the same wage level, but at the same wage level, and you're going to have these skills and certifications. And so that is a way that businesses can start feeling, those people who are saying, I'm not going to go to this business because they're paying $15 an hour, and down the street, or they're paying $16 an hour. Well, you can really look at that stepped up wage system as a way to recruit potential apprentices. So look at that stepped up wage system. Also, and I would say, as much as possible, figure out a way you can quantify what the actual retention rates are. So for instance, if you have worked with a business and that business had 10 people that started as apprentices and 10 people that started just off the street, not as apprentices, and one had 9 people after 6 months and the other one only had 2 people, we can really quantify that, right? We can say the group that came in with apprenticeships as an apprentice, they have a 90% retention rate. So we can always quantify those numbers. It's easy to give a vague, not even a vague number, just a vague statistic saying that apprenticeship increases retention rates. That sounds good, and that's true. Apprenticeships increases retention rates. But if we can quantify that, if we can say at this particular business, apprenticeships increase retention rates by 90%, that is a whole different animal. When we can put a number or a percentage behind that, that's a whole different animal. So just about how you can quantify that. So keep that data. Ask businesses, if they can give you the data of what their turnover rate is for people who are not in apprenticeships, and then you measure what it is for people who are in apprenticeships, and really sell that. And then also apprenticeship provides a framework for recruitment and advancement. So there is an actual framework. Not only are you just coming in to get this job, you're coming in, you're getting this job, and you are advancing. So those are some of the ways that businesses can really recruit that talent that they're so desperately trying to get. Is not only us as the workforce system knowing about the value of apprenticeships, but also that they know the value of apprenticeships. So again, the more we can quantify and show the success stories, the better. And then as we're making these relationships, as we are promoting business engagement, we may put in a lot of work for one particular company, one particular business, one particular sector. We're putting in this work, and at the end, apprenticeship may not be the right fit. That's okay. It may not be the right fit for everybody at all times, but you want to definitely keep that relationship. You want to keep that relationship because the opportunity may come back around. Right. So you don't want to say, okay, well, they don't want to do apprenticeship, so, our relationship ends there. No, we're part of the business community. We want to keep that relationship. And when the time is right, they may come back for that same opportunity. And if they never do apprenticeship, again, or if they never, participated in a registered apprenticeship program, we've still built that relationship. We're able to gain knowledge from them. So you want to make sure that we are keeping those relationships that we worked so hard to build. Before we go off of the PowerPoint, and we're going to look at a website that I want to show you all that I think is really, really good. Are there any questions or comments or anything else that anybody wants to ask, or just chime into the chat box? And again, I would definitely encourage you to share your ideas. Okay, share your ideas in the chat box. This is what these opportunities and these webinar and Zoom sessions are for, is to really share our ideas and also promote what you're doing so that other people can use that as a practice in their organizations as well. All right, and so I want to, thank you, Jamie. I want to show you just one website. So I put this at the end. I was going to put it kind of toward the middle, but I didn't want to be in the middle of the presentation and then I get off on this website and I can't get back to my PowerPoint. So I just put it at the end. So here we go. It's apprenticeship.gov. This is apprenticeship.gov. Okay, so I'm hoping this is going to work. Oh, so if somebody can just type into the chat box and type yes, that you can see my screen, that you are still able to see this website. Okay, so, oh, so I have one no and one yes. Okay, so some people, okay, so I'm going to stop share. Okay, now I'm going to try to share it again. And I'm going to go to the website. So let's try this. All right, and if you can just tell me that you can see it. Okay, great. See, this is why I don't do this in the middle. I wait to the end, so if I can't get back to the PowerPoint, we're done. Okay, so this is apprenticeship.gov. And as I was just researching and, doing a lot of different things to prepare for our time together today, I just did some research on this website. So this is a great place to go to explore apprenticeships. But one of the things that I love numbers. I'm not a math person, but I love like percentages and I love quantifying. So I like how they had here 93% employee retention. That is a selling point. When you see employment retention, businesses love that, especially 93% employment retention. But I just thought that was really good. So again, if you can find a way to quantify any successes. But what I really wanted to show you was here at the bottom, and it says, how can a registered apprenticeship benefit you? And so what it did was it took 6 different challenges that businesses had, and then you get to read a case study about that specific challenge. So as you're preparing to engage businesses, if a business says to you, we want to be able to, I'm just going to put here, retain workers, our turnover rate is high. So you can go here and you can view the case study. So this particular case study is with a company called Hypertherm, and it talks about what their results were. So they needed to reduce turnover. And so their results were a pipeline of skilled employees, lower recruiting costs, and better matching of employee skills with employer needs. So those were the results. But if you just click on it, it'll tell you about the organization. It'll tell you about what their challenges were. So their challenges were developing enough talent to keep up with growth demands. And then it tells you exactly what their results are. And so as you are engaging businesses, you can come up with a model simple to this, just talking about what their challenges are, what the expected results are. You can download the case study for each of those particular companies, and it'll give you a case study. It'll talk about how they implemented their registered apprenticeship. So I just thought this website was great. Here's another one, improving productivity. Again, if you click on it, it'll tell you what the results were. If you view the case study, it'll tell you what the challenges were. So their challenges were developing the right skill talent from the local community and what the results were. Okay, so this is just another website as we're thinking about business engagement, how we're thinking about how to use registered apprenticeship as a workforce development tool in solving those challenges. This is a good website to just come and read and look over, and it's going to give you some talking points and some tips on how to really engage those employers and those businesses. All right, so I am now going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. I think. There we go. I'm so proud of myself. So we're at the end of our time together today, guys. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so I love interaction in the chat, because what I want to do is provide you some ideas, but I also want you to learn from each other and learn from your colleagues of people who are doing this as well. So if you have any questions, anything that you want to share, please feel free to either take yourself off mute, type into the chat box. This is my email address, is kim@nawdp.org. And again, my name is Kim Meadows, but my email address is kim@nawdp.org. If you have anything that you want to email or share with me, feel free to email me. But other than that, if you don't have any other questions, our time together today is complete. So I do appreciate you all for joining us. This is going to be also archived on our YouTube page. So you can go to NAWDP.org. If you go to YouTube and subscribe to the NAWDP channel, this will be archived on our NAWDP YouTube page. It usually just takes a couple of days to get up. So I'd say by early next week, it would definitely be up. All right. So thank you so much. Thank you all for joining me. And I look forward to hearing from you all and seeing you all very soon. Thank you.